What's up, my friend? Welcome back to a brand new video, and today I'm beyond excited to do another video and giveaway for a new Sonixinema library called Brass Swells. So this is a direct follow-up to the original string swells, and then they came up with woodwind swells. So now they're rounding out the orchestra with the brass swells, and naturally percussion can't really do swells. Like tonally at least. So, I mean, unless you have like a timpani or something or a tonal percussion instrument. But anyway, yeah, so the exact workflow is pretty much the same as the original libraries as you would come to expect, which is really cool. Similar to the Cinematic Studio series where you have a very consistent workflow across the different orchestral sections, Sonixinema is doing something very similar as well. And I also like how their graphics on the libraries tab is very consistent as well, just with a slight color scheme change and a little bit of the graphical change as well. So as you would come to expect, you have the singles, which are basically the regular patches that load up individually, but then you also have the pairs, which are basically the same as the singles, but just with two of them loaded up at the same time, different combinations of these patches. Then the designed patches are the sound design patches based on tweaking different elements of the regular patches. And then you have a high quality mode, which are basically the same original patches, but just with higher fidelity of sound, I'm pretty sure, but probably taking up more resources on the CPU. So for the purposes of this video, we'll just use the regular patches here. So yeah, the graphical interface is very similar. A couple of the key features I just want to run over with you really quickly. So we have the 5 different types of articulations. These are all brass swells, but they also have the legato patches versus the normal patches. So the legato basically means that when you play a swell, if you keep it held down, then the swell will basically activate, right? But if you add in another note while that swell is continuing, then that additional note will carry on at the same place in that swell as the rest of the notes. So if you play, let's say, 2 notes at once and then you play another note a second later, that additional note will not restart its own swell from the very beginning. It will actually latch onto the current position of the swell so that all 3 notes swell up and down appropriately together. So let me play a quick example of that. I'll just play one note, a C, and then I'll play another note so you can hear how that sounds. Right, let's try that with 3 notes this time. So 2 at the same time first, and then the third one afterwards. Right, so you hear how that third note I added on top basically came down with the other 2. So that's basically what the legato patch does. But if you don't want that, if you want the third note to have its own swell from the very beginning, then you would just go with the normal patches without the legato feature. But personally, I like 99% of the time, I would probably use the legato patches myself. The other thing is that they, by default, come retongued, so you can always go into the upper right-hand corner of each patch and press no tongue. So in that case, you can remove that little gap in the middle. Right. That's the idea. And you notice there, but just before I played the last chord, when I played it previously, it was still basically catching on to the previous swell's articulation. So when you play a swell, you have to wait for a few seconds until the swell actually disappears before you play the next swell, or else I think the engine will think that you're still trying to capture that last bit of the swell in your next chord. So anyway, that's just the normal patch. Let's hear the loud articulation. Pretty much the same thing. I'm going to turn these all to no tongue actually because I prefer it that way. So no tongue here, no tongue there, and no tongue for the air patch as well. For the air patch, it doesn't really matter, but let's hear the loud patch on its own here. Right, so you get that nice brassy sound, definitely with a lot more like quiver compared to the normal patch, which is more mellow and warm. Let's hear the pulse patch here. Right, so that's really pretty as well. Let's hear the mutes. Right, and you can see I'm sort of playing around with the mod wheel as well to trigger dynamics. The mod wheel actually doesn't do too much of a difference. Like, it doesn't affect the actual swell that much. When the mod wheel's at the very top, you hear the swell a little bit louder, and there's probably a little bit more bite to it. And at the very bottom, it tapers it off just a bit more. But really, the swell is where all the dynamic is baked into, just through the performances themselves. And then finally, the air. Right. Now let's maybe combine a couple. Let's combine normal and let's combine mute together. Take away air there. And I'm going to turn down normal just a little bit because I mainly want to hear the mute sound. Right, maybe I want the normal a bit more to the left. So pan that to the left, pan the mutes to the right. Right, so it's relatively flexible. You can change the volume of each of the different patches you're combining, and you can change the panning, which is quite nice as well. And then if you don't like the placement of these articulations, again, in this menu at the very top, you can just choose a different articulation altogether. So it doesn't have to be in the order that it comes out in by default. All right, that's the basic patch. And it is tempo synced, right? So you can affect it to swell over 1 bar, 2 bars, half a bar, 3 bars, or 4 bars. But I think by default, the 2 bar seems to work really, really well. And yeah, if there's anything else you want to change, you can certainly do that. But like I've always said, if you have pre-recorded swells and performance patches with articulations that have nuances within them, then I find that 99% of the time it's more realistic to go with those patches, especially if they're tempo synced and they can adapt to your project tempo, which is a great thing, or else you're just going to get a less realistic performance if you try to create those performances yourself, and you might sacrifice a bit of that quality there. Okay, so that being said, that's the singles and pairs pretty much. Let's hear some of these design patches. So you get quite a few of them here, but I'll just play a couple that I've chosen here. So let's hear Arctic Tundra. Right, so quite a lovely sound. And basically, again, these are just designed presets, if you will, based on the regular patches. So here you can see it's a combination of the mute and the air articulation, with the mute a little bit louder than the air, and then you also get the swell extended to 4 bars with very little artifacts, by the way. It sounds really, really nice. And then they played around with these filters a little bit as well in settings, and the reverb you can see is turned on there as well. Let's hear Everlasting. Right. And there again, you can really hear the pulsing articulation in there. The mute adds a nice little bit of bite, so it adds a bit of aggression, which I really do like. And then the air just expands it, gives it that ethereal sort of feeling to it. Really cool. Let's hear Nocturne. I mean, you know I'm going to choose that one if I see Nocturne because of like Chopin, so. Cool. That one has sort of that mono feeling to it. And then let's hear Worthy. This is the last one we'll go over here. Cool. And you might think that some of these are carrying on a little bit too long in terms of the reverb or the tail. So worst comes to worst, you just print it, or like you bounce that audio file in place, or the MIDI in place, then you just taper off that audio file, or you do a little bit of a crossfade at the end of the region to give it that taper. And then of course you can go through, do the EQ envelopes, however you want to do that. But I think the overall GUI, once you kind of get used to it the first time, it's more or less very straightforward, and I do really appreciate that. So that's sort of what, for me, makes a good library, is that the sound is great, the functionality is great. It's programmed very well in a way that it's very easy to play, and it's also inspiring. So these libraries are quite unique in that they've recorded these different swells. You don't have to write the module yourself in order to create those swells, and it's also tempo synced, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. So I really do enjoy that. And again, a big congrats and thank you to Sonixinema for putting this library together, and of course for providing me a copy for review. Speaking of which, they're also very generous in doing a giveaway copy as well. So I haven't done a giveaway in a little bit, so let's do that here. So if you're interested in potentially winning a copy of this library, there's just 3 simple things you need to do. Number 1 is to fill out the form down below in the description box. Enter your information there, and you'll be entered into the system, and I will reach out in a couple days via email to let you know who the winner is. The second thing you need to do is leave a comment down below in this video and let me know why you want this library and what you will use it for. Always cool to see your thoughts there. And third and finally is simply to leave a like on the video, which is greatly appreciated. It helps out the channel, and it lets me know that you enjoy these types of sample library walkthroughs and reviews and stuff like that. So if you like the video, then obviously it'll help me do more of those as well. And of course, if the giveaway has already passed by this time, then feel free to purchase the library down below. I've included a link, I think, in the description and down below in the pinned comment. And if you do purchase the library using that link, then you'll support my channel in a small way as well. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you do enjoy these videos and you want to see more of them, then using that link will earn me a very small commission along with your purchase. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, big thanks to Sonixinema, and thank you to you as well for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.